This is mic number 2. Oh, great, you can hear me. So I brought my Altoids just so I keep my breath fresh for you guys. How many people were here yesterday? Oh, gosh, and you're back? I am so honored, truly. I mean, you just made my day. I want you to know. It's funny when you do these public speaking things because it's very difficult to read the audience sometimes, and you're always wondering, am I boring them? Are they actually interested in, because they're all basically insecure. What I'd like to do is put the video up first. Don't play yet, but I want to get a little bit of an idea. I know today is the Consumer Day, right? So how many in the audience, by show of hands, are cannabis consumers? Proud cannabis consumers? Yes, own it. Isn't it great living a life of authenticity and being able to choose cannabis over alcohol, tobacco, and pharmaceuticals? And be proud of it. I equate this movement very similar to the LGBTQ community, and we were talking about this and coming out of the closet and truly living an authentic life, and there are a lot of parallels, and I want to talk about kind of the history of cannabis and prohibition. I entered the market in 1992, which seems like decades ago, because it is decades ago, but the funny thing is 1 year in the cannabis world is like 10 years in anything else, and everything is moving literally at warp speed. So if we can pull up, is that the video, guys? So I wanted to tell you a little bit about my entry in 1992. I was working in the celebrity and media world. I was a regular on Access Hollywood and Entertainment Tonight and the Today Show and all that. So my world was basically working in the fashion and celebrity world and working with celebrities and doing product placement and that sort of thing. And then in 1992, I was sexually assaulted, and my therapist actually recommended cannabis for me as a treatment basically for PTSD, what we know as post-traumatic stress disorder. And today, 30 years later, we know that cannabis does in fact work tremendously for PTSD, primarily with veterans. And most people think of veterans coming back from the war, not only with PTSD and phantom limb pain, but for women who have anxiety or any other kind of depression issues. Cannabis is a superior mood stabilizer, and I'm very proud to say that I no longer take any pharmaceuticals whatsoever. We have been able to work with some of the top scientists in the world. Thank you. And I have to tell you something. There's such a huge difference. The mood disorder, the chronic pain issues, PTSD, Dravet syndrome, epilepsy, and quite frankly, cannabis is just an overall wellness agent. If cannabis were actually discovered today in the Amazon jungle, do you know that it would be heralded as like the miracle drug and the superfood, like the acai berries, and people would come back? And the funny thing is, it's actually been legal and used for over 5,000 years. Did you guys know that? Yes? How many people knew that? Okay, about half. Did you know that in the 1930s, cannabis was actually prescribed for more illnesses than all the pharmaceuticals combined at that time in history? True story. And then some very powerful men with a lot of money decided to demonize the plant because people of color, just like today, are being penalized at a rate 10 times more than white people. Just because of these, and nothing against old white men, but it's time to get with the program. We are a diverse culture, and it is our diversity and our immigration into other countries that make us who we are, and that's what we are. We are human beings, and we are all part of the same spirit, and we have to be kind to each other. So in 1992, I started using this, and I decided to come out of the closet, and there were 3 men. They were known as the Billionaire Boys Club. It was George Soros, who's the only one still alive, multi-billionaire, John Sperling, who was the founder of the University of Phoenix, another billionaire, and another man by the name of Progressive Insurance, Peter Lewis of Progressive Insurance, another billionaire in his late 90s. These are what we call the legacy investors. These are really the grandfathers and the creators of what we have today as the cannabis movement. It is a movement. And these gentlemen put together $8 billion over the course of the past 25 years, and they hired me to do their political and media strategy because they thought women were gonna be the secret to the whole darn thing. And guess what? It is. 87% of the decisions made today are made by the women because women, how many guys know a happy wife is a happy life, right? Am I right? Okay. So if the lady's happy, The kids are good, the grandparents are good, the husband good, everything is good. So ladies, exercise your power, get involved on a political level, on a business level. It's a great thing to do. But when I came out, I was like the only woman. So I want to share with you a video sizzle reel. Some of you have seen it already, but it'll kind of take you through my journey a little bit, and then I'm going to tell you where we are today. But just keep in mind, in 1992 and moving forward, not everyone liked what I was doing. The illegal growers wanted to keep the market illegal because they could get 8,000 a pound by shipping it in various other areas, right? So they didn't like the fact that I wanted taxation and regulation. And so I've been called about every name in the book. A drug addict, a drug pusher, a con woman, a snake oil salesman. But today, 30 years later, I'm very proud to say Canada is leading the industry in an international way, and you guys should be very, very proud of Canada. And after 30 years out there, guys, because I'm almost 60 now, after 30 years of getting my ass kicked, I can finally hold my head up high and say, I was right. It works. So let's roll the tape so you can get an idea of kind of a little bit of my history and then where we're going to, okay?
Insider with perspective on today's top trending stories. And she's known as the Martha Stewart of marijuana.
I grow it, I smoke it, I cook with it.
But is she the queen of cannabis or a snake oil salesman in this booming $47 billion industry?
As an end of life care
Let's go inside.
to save my life.
Now, the latest celebrity and pop culture news delivered to you 24/7. It's the Insider together with Yahoo. Straight ahead, I'm with the Martha Stewart of marijuana when her health scare was a blessing in disguise.
No politician, even if they thought it was a good idea.
That is not a cigarette Zach Galifianakis pulled out on Real Time with Bill Maher.
I think we officially all know now where he stands on the great marijuana legalization debate. He recently sat down with a lady who is all for it.
Her name is Cheryl Shuman. She's a fascinating woman. It was a cancer diagnosis that led to her second career as a medical marijuana concierge, a $47 billion industry, by the way. Many have criticized her. They've called her a con artist, a snake oil salesman, a drug addict, but she shakes them all off. Tonight, the Insider investigates the Beverly Hills cannabis queen.
I love marijuana. I grow it, I smoke it, I vaporize it, I cook with it, I eat it raw.
Whatever you call her, the queen of cannabis or the Martha Stewart of marijuana, one word defines Cheryl Shuman: resilient. Yeah, or lousy. And you keep getting back up. It's crazy.
When I got into this, I was dying. I was $600,000 in debt. I'd lost almost all my hair. It was not pretty.
But people wait, most of them.
Cheryl was born into extreme poverty in a tobacco farming family in the Appalachian Mountains in Ohio. That's her CBS documentary from the 1960s. Those early roots seeded in her a relentless drive to succeed. But in 2006, after a successful business career, she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer and given just months to live.
I was rushed into emergency surgery. They did a radical hysterectomy, removed ovaries, uterus, part of my colon, part of my bladder.
And the cancer had spread.
Yeah.
There was a blessing in that cancer.
Yes.
The blessing came in the form of a drug which in 1996 in California had been approved for medical use: marijuana. Cheryl used oil derived from the plant to alleviate her symptoms and made a remarkable recovery.
You reach a point where you'll do almost anything to have one last day with the people who love and care about.
Cheryl began growing the plant and using her
Thank you. We'll just put the first page of the PowerPoint up. What do you think, guys? It's been a long journey, right? You got to love the 80s hair and growing up in Appalachia. You know, a lot of people, when they see me on television today, they see me driving around in the Ferrari, and they don't realize that, you know, we grew up poor. I mean, we didn't even have running water or electricity until I was 14 years old. That was the first time I saw a TV set. But one thing I realized was the power of television and the power of our own human experience are really the things that change the course of history. As you can probably tell, I'm a huge fan of marijuana. My entire life evolves around it. The speaking engagements that I do all around the world, from Israel to Europe to South America, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, are all about cannabis. And I kind of laugh at myself because I'm so out loud and proud that I've become somewhat of a pot evangelist, you know, to anybody that will listen to me. And, you know, as I was flying here, I had to laugh. There was an older gentleman. He was probably about 80 years old, and he was looking at my computer screen, and I was editing some pieces, and he goes, "Is that pot on your computer?" And I said, "Well, yes, it's cannabis or marijuana, yes." And he goes, "What the hell are you doing with pot on your computer?" And I said, "Well, I work in the cannabis industry." And the first thing he did was he leaned over and smelled my shoulder. And I was like, "I beg your pardon?" He said, "Well, you don't smell like a pot person." I said, "Well, pray tell, sir, I'm curious. What are we supposed to smell like?" He says, "Well, you know, like pot, like that rope burning thing." And he says, "But you smell pretty good." Like, "Well, thank you." And then he took a kind of a step back, and he's like, "You don't look like a pot person either." And it always kind of cracks me up because, again, what are we supposed to look like, you know? And, you know, the issue really is the negative stigma and the stereotype of the reefer madness era of who we were as consumers. And the truth of the matter is, today's cannabis consumer are people like all of us. Our moms, our dads, who are senior citizens now, dealing with chronic pain issues and arthritis and COPD and diabetic neuropathic pain and all this sort of thing. And some of them are moms who, instead of wanting a glass of wine at the end of the day, they'd rather have cannabis, ladies, right? Because there's no calories and you don't have the hangover. So when people can come out of the closet and speak openly, that's how we've really changed the course of history. And when I was diagnosed with cancer, I was still in the closet at that point. I was working politically and with celebrities and media strategy because media is one of the most powerful tools we have. And today, social media is even more powerful. I mean, look at these school shootings and how these kids, these teenagers, have been able to change the course of history and get the NRA and people to take action. Same thing in the cannabis industry. Once people are empowered with learning about this plant, everything from seed to sale, because, you know, I always look at it and I'm like, it's a great little plant. I mean, you guys know it's a little female plant, right? They're all female. I mean, if you're growing the right stuff. But it's a great little plant. And I look at it and it's like, it's actually really kind of cute. And I'm looking and I'm like, how did it get such a bad reputation? And then you look at the history of it. And I was thinking one day, and I was talking to my daughters, and I said, you know, the most important thing to me as a mom is I want my kids to be proud of me. I raised them as a single parent, and I'm very into female empowerment and believing in ourselves. You know, a lot of women lack self-esteem because they've been abused by their husbands, or they didn't feel like they went to the right school or came from the right family. And, you know, men feel that way too, but women tend to feel things more internally. But the truth of the matter is, especially if you're thinking about getting into the cannabis industry, whether you're investing or thinking about starting your own business, the number one thing I want you all to know, that the most valuable thing in the world is you. Every single one of you have the ability to determine your own fate. And I can tell you by my life experience, I mean, I didn't even know that we were poor. I remember the first time I was able to pay my way to a private school, and we all had uniforms, so you didn't know who had money and who didn't have money. And the first day I was there, the girls, the Mean Girls table. We all know the Mean Girls, right? And I was the new kid at school, very proud of myself for using my tobacco money, because I was basically a child laborer on a tobacco farm. I used my money to pay my way through private school. And I remember I sat down with the girls, and they were asking me where I got my uniform. And I was actually very proud of myself because I got it at the Goodwill, and it was only $1. And I had money left over to put in a savings account. And I was like super proud of myself. And the next day I went over, and they said, "You can't sit with us." Like, you're kidding? This is like a line out of like Mean Girls movie. I said, well, why not? And they said, because you're poor. And I looked at them, I said, I'm poor? It was the first time I'd actually heard anyone describe anyone as poor. Because where I grew up, if you had the basic human necessities, integrity, honor, good work ethic, honest, respectable, you were rich. Because we were taught that your wealth is not determined by the amount of dollar signs in your bank account. So I learned that if you work hard to be the best person that you can be, and you believe in yourself, and you know when you look in the mirror every single day that you can accomplish everything because you do believe in yourself and you're willing to persevere and you're willing to fight for what you believe in, I am absolute living proof that you can grow up with absolutely nothing. Not having the right family, not having the right neighborhood or zip code, not even having a phone or electricity. And today I manage over $600 million worth of working capital to invest in the cannabis industry. And I'm able to enrich and empower men and women all over the world, not only with the benefits of the plant, because the bottom line is this plant has the ability to heal a multitude of illnesses: cancer, epilepsy, Dravet syndrome, children who have autism, who have been having issues with seizures and all kinds of things, to finally have one drop of CBD oil under their tongue sublingually with no psychoactive effect. And you know what? They stop having seizures. They start communicating. Kids who've had autism, who've never spoken a word, start to tell their parents that they love them. And there is nothing more powerful than that. But not only is the cannabis plant something that can heal a multitude of illnesses, it can heal our entire world's economies. $47 billion is the estimated US market right now. I'm very proud to say we continue to grow. Yet, I have to be honest, what's happening in our country right now with our current leadership is terrifying. I'm scared to death that at any moment, the guy that thinks he has a big button is going to kill us all. And this is why we really have to focus on the cannabis industry right now, because the cannabis industry itself truly holds the solution for the entire world at this moment. And because Canada is in a totally different political position, number one, you have a prime minister who really likes cannabis, who I think is a really great guy. I don't know him personally, but he's a lot better than what we have, folks. And I love the fact that you guys are going to be legal federally for responsible adult use. Medicinally, you're going to have the ability to import and export. You're going to have the ability to do clinical trials, which allows you to lead in the pharmaceutical world to develop brand new, true cannabinoid drugs, not synthesized like Marinol, true endocannabinoids. And we talk about cannabis being a $1 trillion industry or a multi-billion-dollar industry. When you get into these pharmaceutical incubators and developing new drugs that have standardized testing and dosing, because dosing is very difficult to get. But today, I can tell you, because I have seen it with my own eyes, working with scientists from all over the world, they have found a way to take different strains and extract different molecules from different strains to create 6 new human drugs that are almost ready for release, and that's going to be happening probably within the 6 months. And it's a Canadian company. That's all I can say. But when I see things like that, and I see you guys are just at the infancy, and I want you to really think about the people in this room right now. Think about the fact that this is just the beginning. You're like a new little baby, like a newborn. And you also have to think about the people in this room. You should get to know every single person in this room. Do you want to know why? Because the cannabis industry will never, ever be this small again, ever. And you know that every single person in this room has an interest in cannabis. And what's the most powerful tool that all of us can have? Because keep in mind, the cannabis industry, we're not allowed to advertise. We're not allowed to actively go out there and promote what we're doing. The only power we have is that human experience and sharing our stories and being active in the community and social media. How many people here are fans of social media? Okay. I urge each and every one of you to start getting on social media. Get on Twitter, get on Facebook, get on Instagram. Let your photos from your iPhone or whatever tell the stories. iPhone has a great video camera. If you know of a veteran or an elderly person who's using cannabis, let them describe their experience. Share that with your friends. Start building a following. So if you're starting an edibles company or you want to start a retail establishment, you can. Let's talk about all of the possibilities: extraction, technology, new vaporizers, new software programs. The possibilities are truly endless. They truly, truly are. And I just want to really encourage you guys to believe in yourself, network, go up and shake your hands with people. We had a great conversation yesterday. You were looking for a path. And do you mind if I share your story? I was so touched by this man. Stand up, and I want you to kind of take a bow. We saw each other yesterday. I work a lot with the LGBTQ community, and I've always come from the philosophy, I don't care what color you are, I don't care who you want to sleep with at night, just be a good person, right? And we were talking, and he was, thanks. Because at the end of the day, that's really what it is. Just be a good person, because that's your wealth. Your soul, your spiritual experience on this planet, that is your wealth. That's how you build everything. And he was telling me that he wanted to get into the industry, but that he was really having a difficult time finding a niche or finding a way, and he wasn't finding help. You know, and I told him, I said, you've got the answer, think about it, right? I said, first of all, what'd I say? Never ever give up, no matter what. Don't get depressed and crawl in a ball and go cry. Stand up and think, what do I have? What do I actually have? I'm assuming you're part of the LGBTQ community, okay? Listen, with Aurora and all these companies growing, the LGBTQ community is huge. It's massive. And it's been closeted for a very long time. And keep in mind, a lot of people are still dealing with cancer and wasting syndrome from AIDS and so forth. And you know what? These big licensed producers, they have no way to get into those communities. And it's the same thing with people of color. They don't want someone coming from outside their community telling how to live their lives and how they should build their companies. They want someone who has street credibility, who knows their life, who knows what their challenges have been, and can guide them through the process. And I said, you should become a special community liaison for the LGBTQ community. And I loved watching your face light up, because you knew you had something then, didn't you? And I've seen a total change in you just in the past 24 hours. And a lot of times that's really all it takes. If you're thinking about getting into the business, again, networking is really the most important thing you can do. If you need funding and sourcing, there's a lot of great funding opportunities. But the most important thing is to have a really great product that tastes good, that is good, have an amazing team, because at the end of the day, it's all about the people on your team and your ideas. And you have to have people that can execute. And then last but not least, the most important thing, you need customers. You need people who are going to bring revenue into your company. So I'm going to open it up for Q&A. I work as a consultant a lot. I usually charge $1,000 an hour, but this is going to be a free-for-all. It's going to be ask me anything for free. And I want to try to help. Okay, yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you, brother.
Awesome.
So I was
much better.
recently reading an article with regards to an Israeli who had immigrated to the United States via a spouse of his who was already a U.S. citizen. I believe he was working in molecular biology and assisting a legal cannabis company in, I believe, is Nevada. And he was deported. Luckily, they gave him the option to just leave without facing charges, but he's now separated from his spouse, and he's lost the job that was at least semi-legal. So my question is just with regards to Canadians who might be entertaining employment offers south of the border. We're kind of in the same boat, where if we get an offer from a company that's legal at the state level, the federal government, when we apply for our TN visa, will say, "Oh no, this doesn't fly." Do you think that's going to change in the next coming years? Do you think that some grassroots movements need to be made with a result of that? Just curious about your thoughts.
How honest do you want me to be?
100%, please.
You'd be a fool to go down to the States right now. Any of you would. You would be a fool. I'm trying to get out of there. It's been my home for years. The climate in the U.S. right now is terrifying. Between the racial issues, even in my hometown, I could not believe the level of hatred and racism. I mean, I just wasn't brought up like that. We were taught to look at the person. But in my hometown, I went back, and there's actually KKK members with Confederate flags. And there are people getting killed because they're different. And with our current administration, they're supporting that. That immigration issue with the Israeli, that's a direct result of Mr. Donald Trump. Because I'll just come out and say it, he's a Nazi. He only wants people like him. And the funny thing is, he's not even respected in society. New Yorkers who come from old money, real societies, he's always been known as a shyster, as just a con man. He has zero respect in the community. Now let's get back to your specific question. Right now, you need to understand that here in Canada, they need you, and they need you here. Because all of these companies in the US are trying to get out. Why? Because Jeff Sessions is trying to shut everyone down. And what happens when you get shut down? You lose everything. Look up asset forfeiture. You lose everything. Your family loses everything. Your parents, your grandparents, your neighbors, your friends. And they arrest you, deport you, and figure it out later. It's not worth it. You have to turn the power chair around. Because right now, Canada, and I work all over the world. Canada's in the driver's seat. You're in #1 position. So you would be much better off to start your own consulting firm in Canada. Let them come to you, or you make a trip every now and again, but do not switch your citizenship. That would be a huge mistake. And I promise you, make sure that you're working with ethical, honorable people. It's not necessarily the people with the most money are the best people. Not all money is good money. And I hate to admit this because it makes me really sad for our community. Since Mr. Trump has been in office, there's a lot of Russian mob money in the industry, and people are getting killed. It is the most frightening thing that I've seen since I've been in the industry. So I would say, Canada, be grateful that you're here, because you are going to lead this internationally. And we don't know yet. When you said, what do I think is going to happen? Nobody knows. Everybody's terrified. People are trying to leave the country. Even in Los Angeles, people are trying to get out of the cities. It's concerning. So I would say take advantage of what you have here, become an expert, and go for it. You're welcome. Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
Props to you for 30 years in this industry.
Thank
Being
you.
a woman.
I love it.
Coming from the Appalachians. Right on. That's amazing.
Thank you. How many of you guys remember the Beverly Hillbillies? Did you ever watch that show?
Oh, yeah.
I was like, what was her name? Dolly Mae or Sally Mae or? Yeah. I mean, you saw the hair. I mean, but that's why it's like, you know, a lot of people, when they see me on TV, they see the Ferrari and they just automatically think I come from some wealthy Beverly Hills family. Now, I'm self-made. I've been in the dirt. I've done my own garden, been my own grower, and I believe very strongly in giving back to the community and empowering other people to achieve their dreams. It's very, very important. Thank you.
So $1,000 an hour, that's fantastic. But unfortunately, I'd love to ask you a whole bunch of Canadian questions,
Sure.
but I don't think that will be too helpful. So maybe more of a general question when it comes to how do you find being a woman in this business, okay, because I'm guessing that it's a male-dominated industry right now, especially with all the heads of the LPs here in this country. Any advice for women specifically who are moving forward in this industry?
Yes. Okay. Being a woman is not always easy, especially when you're blonde and you have boobs, you know? I mean, one of the things that I do, which is maybe not necessarily a good thing, but I always have my vape pen down between Thelma and Louise just so I never forget where it is, right? So one of the things that I really love is, you know, I'm just myself. People either love me or hate me. I really don't care because we have to be true to ourselves. But when I first started, you know, coming out in this industry, one thing I love is I love being underestimated. I love it when these guys think I'm just a dumb blonde. I'll sit there and I'll go, I can play dumb, yeah. And I turn it around and then they're like, whoa. So to me, I've learned to listen a lot, especially to the gentlemen that I refer to as the elders. And in the cannabis community, there's a multitude of different people that you're going to deal with. In the growing community, the people that I refer to are the elders. A lot of them are Vietnam War veterans that lost their legs or limbs, and they're family farmed, which happens to be a pot farm. That's the only way they can support their families. So the most important thing as a woman or as a certain nationality or a certain religion, the most important thing is to remember who you are and the person that you're talking to. And you know, if you're into yoga, there's the saying, namaste, I honor the spirit within you, right? So I think in every single situation, it's really important to find the good and the common bonds with each other and to see where your strengths can help them and how together as a community, man, woman, black, yellow, pink, doesn't matter. We can all start working together as a community because the power of the people is something that has really moved cannabis forward. Like I said, it started with the LGBTQ community, and then when the moms came on board because their kids had epilepsy and Dravet syndrome and all this, it's the people that can change the course of history. And that's by getting active. Start working with your politicians. Start a women's group. Start an investing group. Start learning about the stock market. I just signed on with Investor Intel because people always see me on TV and they're like, hey, I want to get in. The green rush, it's coming. I want to be a part of it. I want to make money. Everyone's going to be millionaires. Well, that's a slight exaggeration, but you have to ask people, you know, what's the level of risk you want? Do you want to just dabble in penny stocks? Then you got to know what you're doing. You need to know who's behind the companies. Do they have audited financials? If they don't, you don't know how they're spending your money. They could be spending it on cruises and yachts and playing golf with Mr. Trump on his golf courses. Or the money might not be good money. It might be bad money. It might be Russian mob money. You don't know. So you want to make sure that you're investing in companies that have a good, solid reputation where you can look at their books because they have to file things with the SEC and the other various organizations. And you need to check out who their team is. Yeah, I'm a little weird that way. When I start working with a company, I see who the COO and the CEO and the CTO and all these people are. I immediately go to their LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn is a great networking tool. I look to see who they're connected to, because whomever they're connected to, if they're people of respect and standing in the community, that tells me that they are honorable and they're respected by their peers. Then I look at their Facebook page. I see what kind of things that they post. So I know what their politics are. Do they like dogs or cats? Are they a farmer? Are they just in it for the money? I like to know if they're charitable. Do they give back to society? Are they parents? Do they have kids? You know? And you can find out so much on people. It's so funny. Looking at someone here today, you have no idea really what the background is of people. Social media, bada bing, bada boom. You know what they had for breakfast, lunch, dinner, where they're going tonight, what movies they liked last week, and the fact that they yelled at their dog because the dog ate up the trash can. But those things are really, really important. And again, it's engaging, really listening, and being a good, solid human being, and looking for great opportunities and networking. Any other questions?
I think we have time for one more question. We got a gentleman over here, and then we're going to move on to the next speaker.
Hi, Cheryl. Thank you so much for coming here to talk with us. You've got an amazing story.
Thank you.
Something that I've just been curious about is there anything that you would go back and change about your journey, your story, to make things better, different, more successful? Is there anything that you can share with us today that you have looked back and think about that?
So the question is, out of all this time that I've been in it since 1992 up to present day, is there anything that I would change or do differently, correct? You know what I would have done? I would have come out a lot earlier. I would have had more courage, more strength. I was terrified. I was somewhat embarrassed. My biggest fear was losing my children because I was a single mom and I had 2 daughters, and it was a rough divorce. And I was worried that I would lose my circle of friends, or more importantly, that people would look at me, and because I use cannabis, I was scared that they would think I was a bad person. I didn't want to be seen as a bad person. And if I had it to do over again, I would have said, screw it, I'm going for it. That was at the peak of the AIDS epidemic. I worked a lot in hospice and end-of-life care, And when you are helping people transition over to the other side, especially people who have been abandoned by their families because they were gay or they were lesbian or they were whatever, I remember the very first time it really impacted me. I was at one of the hospice centers and they had an annual barbecue at the park. And this is right when AIDS is really on the news every night, and I remember looking at this older gentleman, and he was by himself, and he was trying to eat. And it was obvious he had AIDS, and I was kind of mesmerized by him because I had never seen a live person with the disease. It was still very closeted and within the communities, and I looked at him, and I was just compelled to go over to him. I saw him, and he kept trying to get the peas. It was peas on a spoon that he was trying to get in his mouth, and he just could not get that up to his mouth. And I looked at him, and I went over to him, and I put my arm around him, and he kind of jumped a little bit. And I said, "Sir," I said, "do you mind if I help feed you?" I said, "I just couldn't help but notice that you're having some issues." And I said, "If it's okay, I'd really like to give you a hug." And you guys who do know me, I'm a hugger. I mean, I'm a hugger. I just love hugging people. And he looked at me, and he was like, it was the strangest look. He said, "But I have AIDS." I said, "I know, honey." And I said, "You need a hug more than anybody I've seen in a long time. And I don't care if you have AIDS. And you need kindness and compassion right now. And if it's okay, I'd like to spend the afternoon with you." And I did. And I wish to God that I had done that right then, and witnessing what I had and the possibilities that we could have changed those situations sooner. That's the regret that I have, that I didn't come out sooner, that I wasn't stronger, that I didn't believe in myself, that I didn't have the guts to come out of the closet then. It was only when I got cancer and they told me I was going to be dead in less than 3 months, it was like, now I have nothing to lose. If I get fired, so what? I'm going to die anyway. My kids are taken care of. You know, I've settled all of my states and everything, so I'm not worried about it anymore. And the funny thing was, when I first started using cannabis, I was literally on end-of-life care with 27 pharmaceuticals and an intravenous morphine pump, and my life consisted of hitting that button every 4 hours and knocking myself out with morphine or whatever it was, or the opioid that they had in there. And one day, a friend of mine told me about 2 CBD plants. One was called Harlequin and one was called Cannatonic, and it was in the Golden Triangle that they were, "Oh, you guys know. You know my strains." And a friend of mine that I'd gone to high school with said, "Hey, I heard that you were dying in the hospital, and I'd like to come and say goodbye because I always had a crush on you, and I'm just really sad what you're going through." And he told me about his sister growing these 2 strains and about how most of the growers were actually throwing it away, because it was the cannabis with CBD, and it didn't have any psychoactive effect. It didn't get you high. He said, but they're claiming that it's healing and curing some cancers. And he said, "What do you have to lose?" And I said, you know what? You're right. What do I have to lose? I'm going to die anyway. I can't think of a better way to go than with a smile on my face, right? So I tried it, and within 30 days, we started experimenting with a raw food diet, with juicing and all kinds of concoctions. And you saw me. I love cannabis. I eat it, I smoke it, I rub it on my body. And we tried to get as much cannabis and CBD in my system as we could. And within 30 days, I was off of the intravenous morphine pump with no pharmaceuticals at all whatsoever. And I was able to go to the bathroom by myself for the first time since I had been diagnosed with cancer. By the 60-day mark, I was doing yoga again. I was driving. I was even going for long walks and running with my dog. And by the end of 90 days, I was in full remission and had no freaking idea how I got there. And that's when people started. They're like, "Hey, I thought you were dying." And I'm like, "I was, but I started a pot farm and my whole world changed." And the thing was, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I'm a mom and a businesswoman and now an investor and an expert in the cannabis industry. But I couldn't explain to people. They were like, "What did you do? I mean, I saw you in the hospital. What did you do?" Like I had some kind of secret magic formula. And it was then that I met Dr. Raphael Meshulam that was able to give me the credibility to tell my story, because no one believed me. It's like, I couldn't even believe it myself. It's like 90 days, that was me. Now this is me. I don't know what's happening to my body or how I got here, but I know that Dr. Meshulam in Israel does, and he can explain to you the medicine and science behind this, and I'm telling the truth. I am living witness to the fact that this plant can save your life. And again, I wish I'd done it sooner. But yeah, it's been the most amazing thing that's ever happened in my life. I feel truly blessed every single day. When I realized I was going to live, though, it was kind of sort of funny because it's like, wow, if I'm going to live, now I'm going to need a job because I just spent all my money on all this stuff. And I was like, maybe I shouldn't be so vocal because who's going to hire me now knowing that I'm a pot smoker and I use it every day and I throw pot parties at my house? And I thought, you know what? So I'll create industry. So I started the very first cannabis magazine to compete with High Times, and we were like a Vanity Fair style magazine. We did the very first cannabis trade show to start showcasing products. We had over 150,000 people through the doors at the Denver Convention Center with 18 music acts and 200 speakers. And that year we legalized Colorado. That year we legalized Washington. And we have not stopped, and we won't stop until we see every single country in this world profiting and healing and changing their communities for the better with cannabis. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Please look me up online. I'm very easy to find. It's Cheryl Shuman, CHERYLSHUMAN, and it's the same on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of the social media channels, and you'll find a lot of people here. I am friends with Facebook, and I do actually have my own cell phone number on my thing. I actually talk to people and take calls because you know what? I really like you guys. I mean, it's people like you that keep me going on because I'm an empty nester, my kids are grown, and pot's my baby now. It's like, I love the opportunity to go all over the world and talk to people like you, and I just want to tell you how grateful that I am that you came here today because you made my whole week. Thank you.